Has everyone had their makeup? Cameras are ready? We're good? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Call to order the Policy Committee of Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. On this particular agenda, we do not have a Pledge of Allegiance, so we'll bypass that. And we'll have any public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the committee's jurisdiction or scope. For items on or not on the agenda, anyone willing or interested in speaking before said illustrious committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion. And that cannot be me, so one of you two.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda for June 9, 2016.
Second.
I have a second on that. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Mitchell,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
and Gould.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Move on to the first action item this evening, Accommodation Award or Wallet Badge for Board of Directors. Recommendation. Ms. Pania.
Good evening, Policy Committee. Before you, there are 3 policies.
Yes, there
As
are.
you know, Board Strategy 5 of the district's strategic plan calls for the board to work with staff to review these board policies. So there are 3 policies this evening. The first is the Accommodation Award and Wallet Badge for Board of Directors. A few edits have been made. They are minor edits, and they are reflected in the attached policy. If you approve these edits, we can move forward, but I would also be willing to accept any suggestions, changes that you may have, because, like I mentioned, these were very minor edits. So depending on what the policy would like to do moving forward with this policy, staff would be willing to incorporate it into the board policies and procedures and then eliminate this as a standalone policy. So I would be happy to take any suggestions you may have or any questions.
Okay. For Ms. Pania, questions relative to the first action item on Accommodation Awards and the Wallet Badge.
One comment. The last sentence there talks about the director having the opportunity to decline the award. That was put in at my behest when this first came to the policy committee. Reason being that I wanted the director to have the opportunity to look at what would it cost, because in those days budget was a real concern, as it is now and always will be. So just to clarify, the reason for that is so that a director could look at it and say, does this expenditure really warrant something we want to have come out of the budget? That's it.
Thank you. Sir, anything?
One question. The word wallet badge means smaller than regular size badge, like when I was appointed and was given. So that would not be given any longer. It would be a smaller, call it the wallet badge. Am I correct?
I think that is the one.
No, it's a flat badge essentially versus a shielded.
Shielded? Okay.
I have one in my wallet. It's designed to fit flat in the wallet. It's not a smaller one, I don't believe. It's just a different shape.
Gotcha. Thank you, Chief.
Melissa, I have a couple of items for you.
Yeah.
Where it says award will be issued, this is in the background information, you can eliminate the possessive stays with the district, so it can say award will be issued for serving the district's constituents and employees. It doesn't need to identify the employees as if they're since it's possessive to the district.
Change
That'd be the
will be
first
made?
thing. Huh?
I said change will be made.
Okay. The next thing is I think we ought to keep it. What happens if we run out of wood? I don't think we need to say a wooden plaque. If somebody there might be a day where we transition to, a crystal plaque or a granite plaque. Mm-hmm. So I just think what you're trying to get across is that they'll receive a plaque of some type. Make sense?
Makes sense
So,
to me.
I just think, okay, we're going to tie ourselves to a wooden one. That may be more costly in the future in this state.
I think that's an excellent
Right,
point, and
so-
I truly wish I'd thought of it.
So, anyway, those are the two that I would have. I think this is an excellent idea, and I really like the idea of incorporating it into policies and are into the the board's work, and then just being done with having these policies that stand alone, which have to be reviewed and blah blah blah. So, with that, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion for this.
I'll make said motion.
Okay, I have a first. It's gonna have to be you.
And then that makes me the second.
It would make you the second.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments relative to this action item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Mitchell,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
and Gould.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Move on to item number 2, public communications policy. Ms. Padilla, you're still up.
Okay, so the public communications policy is one that was put in place in November of 2005. And this existing policy is a redundancy based on Section 31 of the existing board policies and procedures.
Yep.
That section was included in the staff report for comparison purposes. And I'd also like to mention that the section in your board policies and procedures is in line with Brown Act regulations, specifically Government Code 54954.3 and subsections A, B, and C. And so additionally, one of the things I also wanted to mention was the agendas reference policy number 119.01. And so this policy is retracted this evening as staff is recommending. The agendas will now reference Board Policies and Procedures Section 31. So I would be happy to take any questions.
This seems like a slam dunk. What we would be doing is taking action tonight as a policy committee to refer it to the full board so that they can weigh in on what they want to do with this. And so questions or comments relative to this action submitted by staff?
None.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Well, I guess it's an action item, so let's get a first and a second.
I'll give it first.
Okay? I think it's back up to you.
Second.
Okay? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Director Mitchell,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
and Gould.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And again, that means that we're making a recommendation to the full board that this particular policy be retracted and that we reference the current standards today. So, good. Okay. All right, let's move on to the third action item tonight's meeting, and that's petty cash policy. Ms. Pania, still your bucket.
All right, so the last policy before you this evening is the petty cash policy with the last revision date of April 8th, 2002. This policy has been reviewed and is no longer required by the district. The availability of procurement cards have allowed the administrative and logistics divisions to no longer maintain cash on hand. I verified with the finance division that this is the correct practice, and we are requesting that the policy committee refer this to the full board to recommend retraction of this policy.
So we're virtually in the same situation, gentlemen, where we're taking an old outdated policy and just retracting it and moving it back into standards that we're using today. So are there any questions for Ms. Pania relative to this action as well? Again, I just want to remind this group that we're simply asking to move it to the full board for consideration. And I would imagine it can go on consent since these are fairly basic, right? Just move it to consent on the full board at the pleasure of the president. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we move this on to the full board.
Thank you. Second?
Second?
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Mitchell,
Aye.
Director Orzali,
Aye.
and Director Gould.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Just want to make mention of the fact that we have scheduled a meeting date for September 8th, 2016. And yet, if we don't have action items for that night, we'll postpone or cancel and move it to whenever we can find more redundant policies in our system to obliterate. With that, any other questions or comments? Okay, this policy meeting stands adjourned.